1, Mr. Ian Bruce.
Number 1, Mr. Speaker.
I've been asked to reply, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, is hosting the NATO summit meeting. This evening she will be attending a dinner for NATO given by Her Majesty the Queen.
Mr. Ian Bruce. Order. Well, order. The Leader of the House has every right to answer questions. Mr. Ian Bruce.
Mr. Speaker, would my right honourable friend, as one Welshman to another, share with me, and I hope the whole House, our feeling of pride in the way that the English football team have conducted themselves over the last 3 weeks. And I wonder whether he would agree with me that they deserve the warmest congratulations, and I hope good wishes of the whole House for their next game on Saturday.
Well, I think, in fact, Mr. Speaker, that all members on both sides of the House will share the sense of pride expressed by my honourable friend. The English team have got further in this contest than ever before on foreign soil. What is more important, perhaps even than that, is that the quality of their play and their behaviour has been a great credit to the nation. We're proud of that as well, and we certainly wish them well in the match which remains ahead of them on Saturday.
Mr. Speaker, can I at least agree with the right honourable gentleman in saying the lad's done magnificent? Mr. Speaker, can the right honourable gentleman tell us, will yesterday's decision by the Cabinet mean that people will have to pay lower poll taxes next year?
There's been no consideration by the Cabinet of the matters raised by the right honourable gentleman. The review of the operation of the community charge is indeed well advanced. As the Prime Minister has made clear, the outcome will be announced by the end of the month. It is a great deal further advanced than any review undertaken by the party opposite of their proposal. They've gone through every gamut in the book, from one tax, 2 taxes, local income taxes, capital valuation taxes. They finally arrived back where they started from, with the rating system, which initially they used to condemn as discredited as we do. We shall look forward to hearing their proposals in years' time. Our own will be brought forward at proper time in the proper way.
Mr. Speaker, I rather believe that the right honourable gentleman is being kept in the dark on this subject as he is on others. Perhaps he can answer a question from his fellow Conservatives. Is he aware that senior Conservative councillors have said through their associations and very publicly that next year, in order to be realistic and to reflect the true costs of providing local services, the government's grant should be at least 2.9 billion higher simply to meet inflation? Can he tell them how 2.5 billion will do the job? And which set of Tories have got it wrong? Is it the Tories in local government who have to deal with the realities, or the Tories in the Cabinet who have to deal with the Prime Minister?
There is a huge range of speculative figures being published in the press. The figures upon which the government decides will be vouchsafed to the House in due course in the ordinary way, when the grant proposals are announced in the ordinary way. The country still continues to wait for an answer from the party opposite. What would they propose to do in place of the rating system?
Speaker, perhaps the Deputy Prime Minister at least knows this much, that the poll tax is of itself regressive, unfair, very expensive, and incapable of reform. Can he tell us whether anything decided by the Cabinet yesterday changes anything in that?
The review that is still taking place is of the operation and not the structure of the tax. What the country is still waiting to know is what the opposition are proposing in relation to the rating system. Does the opposition still agree, as they originally did, that domestic rates are unfair and discredited? If so, why do they propose to return to them?
Mr. Andrew Mackay.
Number 2, sir. Not as sad.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply that I gave a moment or two ago.
Aye.
Does my right honourable and learned friend share my view that the commendable performance of Mr. Bobby Robson and his team in showing that we're at least third or fourth most successful footballing nation in the world has been severely tarnished by the behaviour of many so-called supporters in Brighton and elsewhere yesterday? And would he agree that they should be most severely punished with prison sentences?
Well, once again, Mr. Speaker, I think the whole House is bound to agree with my honourable friend that the disappointment at yesterday's result cannot possibly afford any justification whatsoever for the kind of wanton violence and hooliganism that we saw in Brighton and elsewhere last night. I think there will be particular regret for the willingness, for example, to begin damaging cars because they were made in Germany. We welcome the prompt action taken by the police in relation to such misconduct, and it should certainly be dealt with effectively.
To David Alton.
Number 3, sir.
I refer the honourable member to the reply I gave a moment or two ago.
To Alton.
Mr. Speaker, will the Leader of the House take this opportunity to underline his support for all of the parties in Northern Ireland represented in this House for their commitment towards dialogue and partnership towards genuine power sharing in Northern Ireland? And will he tell the House what new roadblocks have been erected today in that process? Who is responsible for having erected those obstacles, and what is he doing to remove them to ensure that that partnership can continue?
Well, the honourable gentleman will understand that that topic is going to be debated within a few minutes of the conclusion of business questions. The whole House obviously wants to see progress along the lines he indicated at the opening of his question. My right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, will be addressing himself to the matter later on this afternoon.
Mr. Robert Hughes.
Does my right honourable and learned friend agree that it is entirely fitting that the Prime Minister should be chairing today's NATO summit? Because it was her resolution that ensured that when the Soviet Union increased their armaments, that Europe matched them armament for armament. And that the only people who don't understand that is why the Soviet Union came to the negotiating table is CND and the Parliamentary Labour Party.
I entirely agree with my honourable friend. I'm astonished that even one member of the party opposite expressed astonishment or dismay that my right honourable friend was chairing the NATO meeting. It's an entirely appropriate place for the Prime Minister of this nation at a time of this importance.
Number 4, sir.
I refer the honourable lady to the reply I gave a moment or two ago.
If there is a ballot on whether or not a hospital should acquire self-governing status, and if the majority says no, does the Lord President think there is any chance that the people who voted will get their way and be able to exercise that choice?
Yeah. The hospitals which are going to achieve self-governing status will be achieving that status in line with the arrangements approved by this House, designed to improve the standards of performance in those hospitals for the sake of those who work there and for the patients who go there.
Mr. Dudley Fishburne.
Number 5, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply I gave a moment or two ago.
Fishburne.
Would my right honourable friend not agree that leasehold reform in this country is long overdue, especially that reform which would allow individual flats to carry their own freehold rather than be tied to leasehold? And would he not accept that if this reform went through, it would complete the revolution in home ownership by permitting people in the inner cities to own their own homes that has been wrought so far by this government?
Well, I entirely agree with my honourable friend about the merit of extending the opportunities for home ownership. He will know that the leasehold system has been the subject of many proposals over many years. We are in fact about to undertake a detailed evaluation of the working of the Landlord and Tenant Act 1987. It would be premature to contemplate any particular changes until that study has been completed.
Mr. David Trimble.
Mr. Speaker, as irrespective of any welcome devolution to an assembly in Ulster, this House will still have some legislative powers with respect to Ulster. Would the Deputy Prime Minister please ensure that all such legislation is made properly by bill, so ending the temporary and contingent and offhand manner in which this House has handled Northern Ireland affairs, and also ending the sort of grotesque mistake I discovered this morning, whereby a person moving from London to Belfast was refused income support because, and I quote, England pays under Act of Parliament, whereas Northern Ireland pays under Order in Council.
Well, as the honourable gentleman knows, the system for legislation in respect of Northern Ireland has been in its present form for some time. The question he's raised has been raised on a number of previous occasions. He'll have an opportunity of addressing himself to it in course of this afternoon's debate.
Mr. John Ghost, number 6.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply I gave a moment or two ago.
Mr. Ghost.
Could my right honourable friend make it crystal clear to the Romanian government that there can be no economic aid from this country or anywhere else until there is sign of genuine democracy in that country? Does he not agree that the arrest of Mr. Leon Nicker and 2 others about 3 weeks ago contrasts very strangely with the marauding, club-wielding miners who were praised but not prosecuted, and that this constitutes a basic evidence that there is no rule of law and no justice in the face of the law. And until there is, there can be no proper democracy in that country.
Well, again, I think the whole House will share my honourable friend's concern at the fact that there is still, as I understand it, no news about the 3 student leaders to whom he's referred. He's certainly right in commending the proposition that we should continue to withhold aid, except on humanitarian grounds, until there is real progress towards democracy and economic freedom, including in particular respect for human rights and the rule of law.
Mr. John Fraser.
Number 7, sir.
I refer the honourable gentleman to a reply I gave a moment ago.
Fraser.
Is the Leader of the House aware that last night, following a cash crisis and a meeting held in secret without prior consultation, it was decided to close 1 in 10 of the beds at King's College Hospital in South London? When the Prime Minister said that the National Health Service was safe in her hands, did she mean 90% rounded to the nearest 100?
Now, I think that the honourable gentleman will find that the arrangements being made last night were designed, in fact, to prevent the kind of short-term shortfall in revenue arising as happened in the past, and to provide for a sensible and sustainable pattern of health provision within the area of the health authority.
Mr. Michael Jack.
Number 8, sir.
I refer my old friend to the reply I gave a moment ago.
Mr. Jack.
Mr. Speaker, can my right honourable and learned friend confirm that under this government, 15 out of 15 taxpayers have enjoyed lower tax rates? That a man on average earnings now pays £1,000 a year less in tax than he would have done in 1979, and that 15 out of 15 taxpayers can look forward to lower taxes under this government.
I'm glad to confirm what my honourable friend has said, that under this government, not only has there been progress in the direction of steadily reducing taxes on income, but also the abolition of borrowing, the movement into the repayment of government debt, and the substantial expansion of real spending programmes as a result of the real growth we've been able to achieve.
Mr. Dennis Turner.
Mr. Speaker, I have a conundrum on poll tax that the Deputy Prime Minister may be able to help me with. That is, how can it be fair that the good folks of Wolverhampton are having to contribute £47 into the safety net, whilst the citizens of Wandsworth are taking £116 out? How can that be fair?
The arrangements for the distribution of the safety net and in relation to community charge are in line with those approved by Parliament and I have a conundrum for the honourable gentleman. When is the country likely to know what kind of arrangements the party opposite will put in place?
Business questions, Dr. John Cunningham.